Okay, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to BWTM Online. We have a special edition of Grenada Matters with my co-host Earl Maitland. We have a show live from Trinidad and Tobago. So we have with us the Grenada Empowerment Movement
good morning, good afternoon,
leader,
good evening.
Earl Maitland with me, my co-host, and we have two other guests in the room. But first, let me just reintroduce Earl to everybody. Earl, how are you doing this morning? For me, this evening for you.
I'm good, brother. I'm good. It's actually the 23rd here for me. I know it's the 24th for you. I want to commend you again, once again, Ingram, for taking this time off at 2 o'clock in the morning, your time to ensure that justice meted out to persons who really do deserve it at this time.
It's important. It's important when we have situations like this happening in Trinidad and in Grenada that we are able to get information and get good news and get news from the sources. So it's very good to get people on the ground giving us information. So when this happens and when they contacted BWTM, it was a no-brainer to do this. So I thank the gentlemen that we have in the room, Hassan and brother Jamal Shabazz in the room as well. Welcome as well to you all. So if you all want to kind of introduce yourselves very quickly again, Phil, start with you first. Earl, who you are and your what you're going to be doing on the show for us.
Okay, so basically, I am Earl Maitland from Grenada, the Spice Isle of the Caribbean. I have been an advocate for justice for over 15 years now. I believe I am possibly one of the youngest on the panel tonight, but it is always a good thing to have additional voices from all over the Caribbean because this is something that really needs to be pursued. Justice. The additional voices would ensure that many persons will stand up against the injustices that we face on a daily basis. The corruption in the Caribbean it's extremely terrible, and this is why I believe that it is important for us to unite all forces, despite whatever countries we are in. It is a pleasure to be here with these two gentlemen from Trinidad and Tobago, which is only 35 minutes away from Grenada. And as Martin Luther King has said, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. I have lived in Trinidad and Tobago, in Tunapuna, in fact, and I am aware of certain situations that have been occurring and that are occurring in Trinidad and Tobago with the TPPS, which is very disturbing, as just as bad as the Royal Grenada Police Force in Grenada. So I do hope that, after tonight's discussion, we can continue working together to ensure that civilians are treated as human beings with rights. Ingram, you're muted.
Brother Shabazz?
Well, my name is Jamal Shabazz. I'm a coach coming out of Trinidad and Tobago, but I consider myself a Caribbean man. I've coached the national team of Trinidad and Tobago, the national team of Guyana, and the national team of St. Lucia. My mother is from Grenada, actually, so I do have some Grenada roots in me, and I know that too well because when Maurice Bishop was killed, I felt something inside me that, that these people talk about that they feel in your stomach, So it's a pleasure to be on the show, and I look forward to the discussion.
Yeah, are you hearing me? Yeah, but I can't hear the other guests. I haven't heard Shabazz nor the other guests. Anyhow, my name is Hassan Anyabole. I'm a citizen of Trinidad and Tobago. Also, I'm involved in helping the youths, and I also work with Jamal, although from a distance here. Also,
Okay.
I'm an Islamic scholar and social activist. So that's where I'm coming from with this situation here.
Okay. Okay. We'll start with you, brother Shabazz. So if you could give us an overview of what's been going on in Trinidad for people who may not know what's been going on, if you give us an overview of what's been going on.
Over the years, we've had the police service and civilians, have, there has been some clashes way back in the 70s. There's been a history with the police service. Quite recently, we have seen a resurgence in police brutality, in police extrajudicial killings, and this pattern came to a head 2 Saturdays ago in my community, the community of Mova, which is a part of the famous Lavantil, which is a few minutes from the capital city of Port-of-Spain. What had happened is that 2 members of the community, one was celebrating his birthday, got a drop, what we call a drop. They entered into a vehicle to go out the road to get something to drink because it was one of them birthday. And the police stopped the vehicle. Several police vehicles stopped the vehicle. One of the occupants came out with his hands in the air, and there's video evidence showing that the driver's hands was out of the vehicle. And then the video evidence show where police opened fire and the men were killed. This caused an uproar in the community when the video was circulated, because nowhere did you see any resistance from the men. And the community by Monday exploded. And by Tuesday, different communities throughout Trinidad and Tobago, in the same way the George Floyd matter in the United States ignited spontaneous protests throughout the world and throughout the United States. We started to see throughout different parts of Lavantil and some of what we call the depressed areas in Trinidad and Tobago erupted with protest action. It is alleged that well, not alleged, it was true that police fired at some of the people. A woman from one of the areas in Beetham Gardens was shot and killed. And the people were generally protesting against the attitude of the police over the years, which has escalated in the last 2 years, and the flippant way in which they deal with people in our community, and the fact that these were innocent people. One of the 3 people has had brushes with the law before, but they were all unarmed, and we have video evidence to show. But the attitude of the commissioner of police was to defend his officers, and the protesters were calling for suspension of the officers pending an inquiry. Since that, the law association, the bar association, since that, different voices has come out asking, and the police officers involved in the incident have since been, I wouldn't say suspended, but they have been sent on vacation. So that where we are now is there are different groups lobbying for some type of action that will bring about a change in the attitude of the police to our people, especially in areas that we consider to be the depressed areas in the community.
So, first of all, I've got to ask you, Brother Shabazz, the lady that was shot was reportedly pregnant. And not only was she pregnant, that they're saying it wasn't the police that shot her, but somebody else fired the bullet.
Right. So it wouldn't take Einstein to realize that the crowd was in one direction, the police was in the opposite direction, and she was heading with the crowd. She was heading towards the protest, right? So when the line of fire, it was directly opposite. Of course, the police have all the media and audiovisual equipment to create all kinds of angles, but eyewitnesses, and it will come out once there's an inquiry, could show that this lady was shot, okay, and she was not shot by the protesters. The people who were protesting in Beetham Gardens did not shoot at the police. They confronted the police with sticks, yes, but they did not fire any weapons at the police.
I hear a lot of stories when it comes out of Trinidad and there's police situations. A lot of the mentality, from what I hear outside of Trinidad, is that, oh, well, it's Trinidad and there are a bunch of rogues anyway, and there's always criminals out there, so it's good the police lock them up and beat them up. So what's your response to that, as it's perceived via the media from people outside looking in, that Trinidad is full of crime and it's out of control, and so that's why the police are taking such a hard line? What is your response to that?
Police has always taken a hard line. I think under different commissioners is how they've tried to manage the process. In the last 10 to 12 years, we've seen a resurgence in gang violence and gang war. But incidentally, at the time of the protest, there was a peace initiative initiated by different community leaders. And what we saw in the protest is rival community groups, coming together, and up to now, that peace have held itself. And what we've seen when this new commissioner came into office, he met a situation, in fairness to him, that was out of control. And he, being a military person, he took it on head on. He got a lot of support from people in the country, and he came in, very aggressive, and he took the fight to the gangs. But now we see a new situation where the so-called gangs have come to the recognition that, look, this is nonsense, and why are we killing each other? And it is based on this we see the need for a different type of policing, a type of policing that can help transform, that behavior, and not to antagonize it and for it to continue.
I saw a documentary or a short thing on Lavant Hill, and they were talking about, I think you may have seen the documentary, I'm not sure, but what they were saying was that Lavin Hill's almost like a forgotten place of Trinidad, and it's like a slum, and nobody wants to know about it. They don't care. They don't care what happens up there, and they don't care if they kill one another. What are your thoughts on this?
Has been the feeling from those who have, and but because the gang violence started to erupt in Port of Spain and affect the business community, then and only then it became a concern, because no longer was the violence just centered around the villages and the internal community. It has started to spread and erupt throughout the country. And this has resulted in that concern, because you could have been in Port of Spain and be killed by a stray bullet, either from the police shooting at youngsters in the hood, or youngsters in the hood shooting at each other. This ignorance has been there. We cannot lie about it. It's the truth. And it has come about through social and economic problems, through inequalities. And while the politicians would try to say and blame these people, they are really and truly, and Hassan would be better qualified to speak on this point. They are the effects of a political system borrowed from the colonial master in England right there. And since independence, we have not been able to make laws that suits us. We have not been able to sit down and reform laws that we just inherited from the former colonial master, laws that were made for master and slave, where people just switch roles. And I think, the police service in particular is in need of serious reformation.
Brother Hassan, thank you for your patience. Can you speak on that, please?
Well, one of the issue is sometime in the late 90s, early 80s, there about, the police service changed their name from police force to police service. Okay, and in the Caribbean, you remember this institution inherited a colonial situation. I think it's the same for Barbados, Grenada, right to the Caribbean. And what happened is that the youths in the ghettos and the youths in general are seen as an enemy, and the police are seen as an occupational force. And then we have inequalities in the societies, in our society. And inequalities kill, because people who suffer inequalities, they may try certain ways to even the situation, but it could be a wrong way, it could be a right way. And to me, the political system has failed these youths, and they are now catching up. In all fairness to the Prime Minister, he has instituted a committee to really get into the heart of the situation and to deal with it. Now, the problem is that this current commissioner of police, right? He's from that class of society that have really looked down, on the other half of the other half in society, like the normal poor people. And he has an attitude of one bullet, 1 kill, or something like that. And he does not. He speaks of criminals as cockroaches, and he has a disdain. Now I understand the problem because we have a runaway crime situation, no doubt, and the factors that led to that were there before he came in. And in fact, since he came in, there have been 46 killings by police for the first 6 months of the year. And that is not healthy. That's not a healthy sign. And there's a suspicion that there's an execution squad within the police force. This is the perception of people based on the amount of killings. So this is why we're trying to raise this issue internationally, because our colonial mentality is still intact, where if the white man or the international community don't say anything, we tend to be like tortoise. We move very slow like turtles, right? So we want to give this thing a kick in the backside, where we can get other humanitarian NGOs involved, to speed up this process, because it could be just lost in the forest, of procedures and bureaucracy. And okay, so as for this girl who was shot, if you look at the clip, the police came out of their vehicle shooting towards the crowd. They came out shooting, and the girl was not shot from the back, because if she was shot from protesters, the police was coming this way and the protesters was coming this way. So if she got shot in the back, I could have understand that. But if you see the clip, the police jump out of the vehicle, shooting, and the crowd pushed back. And then one came up, and then somebody pelted him with something, and then he shot up, and that is when the girl fell. But of course, the police commissioner have a different narrative, right? So we have a problem of closing the gap of inequalities in our society, especially among our young people. If you have a young guy, 15 years, and all he's concerned about is dying, and some of this attitude is what sent a lot of people, Muslim youths, to ISIS, because of the police brutality and their own indoctrination at the same time. Okay, but a lot of the guys who went to ISIS were held under a bogus state of emergency, and they were treated very badly, and some of them left. I'm not saying that is a proper reason. I don't agree with ISIS at all. I oppose that from the beginning. But I'm just showing you that how people react, under these kind of these type of situations, So
Thank you for that. Just for 1 second, Hassan, I want to bring in Earl Maitland from Grenada. For him, because we've been doing a weekly show on Grenada matters and police brutality, and I think this is the perfect time to bring Earl in to compare and contrast.
So, well, I want to find out, the lady that was shot, when was this? When did this happen?
I think she was shot on the second day of the protest.
Yeah.
That's
And that was
around
like
the 3rd
of July, right?
Yeah.
Now, you see, the thing is, so familiar. I am aware that I believe it was sometime last year that there was the allegation of a police officer that went into one of the areas. I can't remember if it was Beetham or wherever, and they shot into the crowd, and I believe it was a young child that was shot, right, and killed. And the commissioner, Mr. Gary Griffith, went on the TV, on the media, and he actually came up with a script, right, where he actually pointed out the location. Yeah, I think I lost you all there for a second. So I do agree, you know, that the way that Mr. Griffith is dealing with things, it definitely needs to change, because from the outside, from where I sit, from the attitude of Mr. Griffith, it seems as though 1 second. Ingram, go ahead still.
Sorry, I'm on mute. Brother Shabazz, did you want to say something?
Well, I think it's clear that it's according to how you look at things. The communities that have been protesting did not receive a lot of sympathy from a lot of people, because they see them as a problem, rather than seeing unemployment and poverty and the real issues that are the problems. But as Hassan said, the Prime Minister, you know, and credit to him, and this is not a paid political announcement, because, you know, it's also election time in Trinidad and Tobago. But he set up a committee, they put me on the committee, and, you know, some people look at it as tokenism, but I have been attending 4 meetings, and I see a genuine effort to address the social, economic issues that surround these communities.
I would like to add to that. Can I? Yeah, because what happened, the last government, okay, the coalition government, what they did the last time, they had a strategy of empowering the gang leaders in these areas. And that was not a good idea, because what happened, it caused rivalry. Okay? And that spurred on this war. In fact, some people suspect them of encouraging this war. But I cannot accuse them of that as yet. I don't have enough evidence. But I know that it was a bad strategy, because when you give this one a contract and you don't give this one a contract, it creates tensions, and but it's already there, you know. So this effort is different. That's why I support it, because it is about getting down to the root. And this is the first time I've heard any government said that they want to get to the root of the matter. And until we get to that root, we'll always have the bad fruits.
Can you elaborate on the tension between the Rastafarian community and the Muslim community for 1 second as well?
Well, the funny thing about that is that the heads are the senior members of the Rasta city were Muslims, for my information. And they fell out with the Muslims because of their Muslims. The Muslims have a program, you know, about drinking and smoking and drugs and stuff like that. And they wanted to go their own way. This is my understanding. Then we had situations of disagreements in prison. And then we had some Muslims advantaging some members who are not Muslims in those areas. So it's not one single situation. And what happened now, that has erupted into a Muslim Rasta conflict. You know, and I mean, how I put it, you know, you are fighting for a turf that you don't own. And when the police pull up, everybody runs. So who own the turfs, you know? So it's just a whole it's just our normal tribalism that have got out of hand, basically. You
I want
know,
to ask,
and
While you're at it, I want to ask you of this, the whole thing of George Floyd and Black Lives Matter movement. How much impact has that had in Trinidad? And have you seen the knock-on effect from this whole Black Lives Matter in this particular situation now? Or has it just been something that's been just turned the blind eye off, like most
No,
situations?
no. I think it. I think that it there was it affected Trinidad and Tobago. It affected the people of Trinidad and Tobago because, I mean, we live in a technological age now. Just as, I mean, you in Grenada, brother is in Grenada, you in England, Jamal is in Trinidad, and there are people who are listening all over the world. So they might hear me say something, or hear you say something, or hear any of the guests here say something, and they're inspired. So I cannot discount the mood of the world and the mood of blacks in America. Now, we are related to these people. I have family there. Many of us have family there. Okay, and so what happens there have a knock-on effect in the Caribbean. So basically, there was a strong influence. And secondly, this thing has been going on so long. This is nothing new. This has been going on so long. But what happened now is that because of social media and the presence of so many cameras, that it is being recorded. That is the only difference from now to long time. And I would just like to digress a little. There was a early commissioner by the name of Randolph Burrows, and he had a squad called the Flying Squad. Okay, and they were responsible for a lot of summary execution, a lot of young people, and that was during the Black Power era when people were becoming conscious of being black and being proud. Again, from the North American black experience, trickling down into the Caribbean area. And what happened is that we had a army uprising, which was squashed. Then we had a Black Power uprising, which was squashed. And out of that, we had youths going into the forest, under guerrilla action, National Joint Action Committee. But all of this stemmed from the way Burroughs and his police officers were treating the activists and young people on the street after these events occurred. So these young university students decided to go to the forest and engage in a guerrilla warfare business. So and all of it stemmed from this habit of extrajudicial killings that we inherited from the colonial institutions, because these police forces and so-called police services we intend to keep a certain section of the population in check. Okay, the way they police those areas is not the same way they police areas where there's a majority East Indian population. They don't do it's not the same policing. It's more aggressive in the black areas.
I need you to educate those who don't know about the demographics of Trinidad and its makeup, so people can get a better understanding of what you're saying.
Well, Trinidad is it's a multiracial society basically. We have East Indians, we have African descendants, Syrians, Chinese, Portuguese, French, British, children of the British, children of the French, Spanish, and but there's the East-West corridor, that runs from the northern part of the island is the place that determines the politics basically, and those areas are highly contested. In the central area, you have a lot of East Indians, and in the southern area, you have a mix of East Indians, Africans. So, but we are overrepresented as Black people in crimes, or should I say, types of crimes. Okay, you find East Indians will be in a different type of crime, and blacks in a different type of crimes. You know,
Give me
so yeah,
examples of that.
okay. Example: most if you go to the courts, and most time a black youth, Afro-Trinidadian is arrested, is either for shooting, selling drugs, or violence, or some sort of that, right? The East Indian, most likely they'll be arrested for fraud or or domestic violence, you know, or killing each other for property, um, and you know, handling stolen vehicles and things. So there's a difference, you know. But well, it's crime, but a violent crime is more reported and more alarming than say if I embezzle you. If you understand what I mean, you know, if I embezzle you 50,000, I mean, it wouldn't have that impact as if I shoot behind you or I wounded you, and you know, so you know, so but I still feel we are overrepresented, and it has to do with there are a lot of sociological factors. You know, there's a lot of breakdown in families. To me, it's not one cause. You know, there's a lot of things that is happening in society that has contributed to this.
I wanna ask Hassan.
Yeah.
The thing is, to answer one of the earlier questions, Ingram was stating that people would say, you know, beat 'em, love 'em, tell 'em over these places, they highly populated with crimes, different crimes, and the police, when they go in inside there, they would have to, of course, defend themselves and so on. But what I want to remind people is that the police officers are not being paid to kill anybody. That's the first thing. They're being paid to protect and serve. And that's the main thing. And many times, based on my experiences, how police officers in general, in Grenada and in Trinidad, of course, the TTPS, how they handle situations would actually aggravate it. You know, just recently, when COVID began, um, there was a certain video circulating social media where we had some police officers from the TTPS, I believe in the Tonga, Port of Spain or wherever, and they were actually driving on the side of a man that seemed to be a homeless individual, and they were actually laughing and making a mockery of this gentleman. Now that itself is police brutality, and that would actually make somebody like myself or anybody that cares about anybody either scared or angry at police officers to see that they would go through strange to such drastic lengths using the taxpayers' assets to to dehumanize a person. You know, it doesn't matter who this person is, if it's a homeless man or the richest man in Trinidad and Tobago. You also have a situation where police officers in Trinidad and Tobago, I remember when I was down there 2011, 2010, 2011, where some cocaine went missing in one of the police stations. And on the news, it was said that this cocaine was found in the roof in one of the police stations. I can't remember if it was in Sawa or wherever. And the officers were actually saying or expecting reasonable thinking citizens like us to believe that the cocaine was dragged in the roof by some rats. You know, that's so ridiculous. So the thing is, we have seen also that just recently, probably within a couple months ago, that a Coast Guard officer was shot when officers were trying to get this place bulldozed, right? And they could have killed this gentleman and for no reason. And in the initial report, they said that this Coast Guard officer and his brother and whoever else actually had pulled up a blast to attack the police officer. But when the videos came out, the story changed. And we saw that what they did, they shot an unarmed man who was moving away from a situation. So it begs the question. Now, the PCA, the Police Complaints Department, and the Police Complaints Authority, which I have had dealings with as well, because of course, as a free-thinking human being, a taxpayer, one that is at liberty to exercise my rights, and rights are like muscles. If you don't exercise it, you lose it. So I have gone to Trinidad and Tobago and made my own complaints to the police commission, complaints authority, and police complaints department, and they are absolute failures, I must say. We have too many officers who are engaging in police misconduct and assault and murder and these things, and this is not being dealt with. But in your experience, um, how is the police complaints authority and department, how are they doing on situations like these? Because from my perspective, from my experience, they are total failures. They are not getting the job done, and I believe this is why Trinidad is at the point where it is at the moment. Many times when we're looking at videos, we seen in the BTM people going, they're trying to block the road. What I do recognize is that there's a lot of fear when police officers from the TTPS actually come into the communities. The last time I was in Trinidad, that was last year, and I was staying up on Twitter down by the Carnage, right? And it was there were so many police vehicles that were passing through, and the way that people would react is always going to be, or most times I should say, be a reflection of how they are treated, right? It's not every time that we would have to bully people into having respect for us. And it seems as though this is what Uncle Gary, as they call him, this is what Uncle Gary is trying to do, trying to bully people into having respect, right? And this should not be the case. It's just instilling more and more anger in persons every day. And one of the things that I go is the fact that they were actually they had this thing. I think it was CPEP or something, Young and Beat Up, where they were actually teaching people skills, life skills, and so on, and paying them $80 a day and so on. And these are the things that we need in the communities, especially in Mova and Beetham and Lavendale and wherever else that it is needed. This is what we need. We need to educate persons. We need to open the minds and have them mature enough to understand that they do not have to turn to crime and take justice into their own hands and so on. I've also witnessed a case with a police officer in Trinidad who's a DJ of Indian descent. He actually robbed a gentleman that I know of, a man that owns a bakery in Trinidad. So I can understand why persons lack distrust in officers in the TTPS, and Grenada is not that much different, and this is what I am trying to achieve to ensure that Grenada doesn't get to that point where it is in Trinidad right now. Trinidad is such a beautiful place, such a beautiful place, and I am really, I'm really hurt to always be hearing there's a murder here, a murder there, a murder all over the place on a daily basis. But those in authority, persons are like a police officer is not the judge, jury, and executioner. There was the one video that we saw on the internet where probably about 6 to 8 officers surrounded a vehicle. I believe there were 3 persons in the vehicle. After they shot them, they were looking around the place. You could actually see them in the video looking around the place to see if there were any witnesses. You could tell by the way that they were reacting. And luckily, there was a camera there to capture what had occurred. And the people of Trinidad and Tobago, as a result of all the frustration and so on, have turned into these protesting. I want to encourage the people of Trinidad and Tobago to keep the protest as peaceful as possible, because at the end of the day, life is very precious, and this is something that we're trying to conserve. We don't need any loss of life from any side. It could be one corrupt police officer, in my experience and in my understanding, even a corrupt police officer could probably one day turn around and make a big difference in our community. So we want to keep everything peaceful because we as human beings, we are to appreciate life to the best of our ability. So how is it with the PCA and the PCD down in Trinidad there?
Okay, brilliant. You said a number of things. As for the PCA, I feel that is overstretched because, I mean, for the first 6 months, you have 40 some, for around 46, 47 police killings. Okay, and plus there's a backlog from last year. Okay, so I think they are stretched, but the Prime Minister given instructions that they prioritize this particular killing that you mentioned in Mova, where you saw the guys came out with their hands up. One guy came with his hands up, the other guy with his hand through the window, and that is what caused the protests. Now, in fairness to the police, because I think everything has, should be looked at in a balance and analyzed, with a balance. For example, the police are policing a political situation. They are policing policies of government. So you have that problem. So, and the police cannot solve those social, political problems. And that is one of the big, to me, that's one of the frustrations I know the police have. Okay, because if a government choose to, disenfranchise a particular section of the public, that have a knock-on effect. And they have to come now to police that angry person, which basically they're not really responsible for that. But if you break the law, they have to act. So you have these two things acting simultaneously. And that is why there's a refrain, a social refrain in Trinidad: the police them wicked. This is this is the street analysis of what's happening. But in that statement, they're really saying the system wicked because the police is just policing a bad situation. That is in fairness to them. Secondly, we have always had rogue police. We have always had that. And in fairness to this new commissioner, he's trying to address that situation. Okay, in fairness to him, he's trying to address that situation. How he's doing it is the issue. Okay, how he's doing it, that is the issue. Because if you speak to him, you say, well, I'm trying to do so and so. I'm trying to do so and so, but it's how you're doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And people always say it's not what you do, but how you do it.
How you
and
do
that's
it.
a very true saying.
That is the exact thing. Now, and you asked about the so I feel that the PCA is stretched, but the Prime Minister assured the country that that finance are available and could be made available if necessary. And then he asked the PCA to prioritize this situation, and he said that if there's not a proper finding from that organization, then he will suggest a coroner's inquiry. So a lot of attention is being put on it. So it comes like this situation is like the proverbial straw that broke the camel back. This is what is happening right now.
So what?
As election.
Sorry, yeah. So when Dr. Rowley is speaking about finance is available. Does this mean that he is going to employ more persons in the PCAC and that they are stressed with the money, so he's going to get additional staff?
Well, he didn't detail exactly what he was doing, because he
Mhm.
was asked if the said organization is properly funded.
Mhm.
And he said, as far as he knows, it is funded properly. And if
Mhm.
they are not funded, or if there's a need for it, for
Mhm.
more finance, it will be made
Mhm.
available. So he didn't elaborate exactly,
Okay.
you
Okay.
know, what is the state of the financial state. But for
Mhm.
sure, I know that particular organization is overburdened,
Mhm.
right? But that is not my problem. They are a state um, institution, and they should have the necessary equipment,
Mhm.
expertise, and financing to carry out their function.
Mhm.
You
Agreed.
know what I mean? Yes,
Agreed. Agreed.
so
Mhm.
um, there is not enough excuse, if that is an excuse that is presented,
Mhm.
from that side.
Mhm.
Okay, so the problem is, you see, the problem I have with policing in Trinidad and Tobago is you know more guns, more
Mhm.
bullets,
Mhm.
more vests, more vehicles, you know, and
Mhm.
we ain't going nowhere. We're just spinning top in mud,
Community
because
policing
yeah, yeah, we
is
need
is
to,
is
yeah,
key.
we
Yeah,
need
you
to
know.
get, you need to get down,
Uh-huh.
but that can only come from the political part of the government,
Mhm. Mhm.
not the law
Agreed.
enforcement part. You see, and that is the
Mhm.
problem. In all
Mhm.
fairness to the police, because we have to be fair in our analysis. In all fairness to the police, we have bad policies,
Mhm.
okay, which should give them sense enough to inform the policing, how they
Mhm.
police people with that knowledge of the social dynamics involved.
Mhm.
You see, but sometimes they just come on the block, kick a youth, throw him down on the
Yeah.
ground. I send the host here a video with a guy standing. He
Mhm.
arresting some youths, and he just, he's carrying around a bravado kind of attitude, and he just went and stand up on the youths. They were handcuffed with their hands behind their back, lying down on the ground,
Mhm.
and he just went and stand up and jump on them. No, what do you want this young man when he is free?
Mhm.
How, what is his attitude? What, how will he see the police? So, and
Mhm.
so I don't want to bash officers who are working hard and
Mhm.
just paint everybody with a brush. But there is a problem that has to be handled.
It seems that the problem isn't just of the limited to Trinidad, but it's going to Grenada. It seems to me that this colonial rule or law that's written into constitutions from former slave masters that has been taken down from generation to generation, there has to be a point where if Trinidad is claiming to be or it is the republic and is independent, then you should be able to say, you know what, this is not doing anything for our country. It's doing nothing for our island. It's doing nothing for our people. This is the time that we say, this is it. Enough is enough. If we're independent, then we will stand independent and we will do what's necessary and we will cut away from this slave master, slave behavior, and we will start. And maybe then we might see change, real change. Because when we do that, it's making a
Mm.
statement. But
Yeah,
will
but
our
you see, the other
country
thing is that you
do that?
remember that, we have you remember Trinidad, Grenada. You remember, it's a colonial legacy.
Yes.
Okay,
But
and with this legacy,
yes.
there's a culture, even in the police force, how they are trained. Okay, so there's a certain culture, and
And,
that
and then
culture is not written on books. It's not written. It's an
of course,
unwritten. Yeah, yeah.
but there's a culture there. But once we understand that we accept that culture is unhealthy, It's not progressive. It's not doing us any favors. And as soon as we admit that culture is not taking us anywhere, the sooner we admit it, is the sooner we will look to make changes to it. But if we accept the culture for, well, it's culture, and I'm not having to go at you here per se, but there's a
No,
mentality.
fine. No, go
Yeah,
on.
there's a perception that, well, if it's culture, then then I'll just go with the flow. There's a perception that, oh well, okay, you know, my grandfather ate unhealthy, my mother's eating healthy, well, I'm gonna eat unhealthy. My grandfather had diabetes, my father had diabetes, well, I must have diabetes too. Well, that's just a curse. So we're continuing the curse. And so unless we say to our governments and say, you know what, we actually protest this as hard as we protest something for George Floyd, we actually say, you know what, enough is enough. We need to get rid of the slave master mentality and the colonialism. We need to cut away from that and bring a new world in and say, well, you know what, this is where we're going to be moving from this point onwards. Unless
Well, I agree.
Go ahead.
I agree to you. Hold on, I agree to 100%. You know, but why identify? Well, when I say a culture, you know, to fix something, you have to own up to it. Okay.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
No. From that standpoint, I'm coming from.
Yes.
So I appreciate what you're saying. I'm not against what you're saying at all.
Yeah.
Now, but the thing is that the powers that be, the movers and the shakers, that is their mentality towards the public. You know, they got to keep these guys in check. You know, you know, so they don't have much sympathy except for, you know, for earning their living or their empire from us being consumers.
The politicians, but the politicians can only be effective if the people put up with the nonsense. Like
that's where we're coming from now.
Without customers, right? So if the people think that the culture is acceptable, if there's a re-education of the people in the towns, in the villages, if there's a re-education of the people, say, look, this is not doing us any favors, we need to change. And even if it's 10 years from now that we're starting to tell our young people, very young people, that these people in power at the moment are not going to last. Will we educate our young people now, young, and tell them, listen, this culture is unhealthy. We'll save lives. But more importantly, we have hope for the future.
Well, I really hope that this is a beginning, you know, and I think Brother Maitland wanted to say something, but I think I'm just hoping that this is not a false flag, a false start. You know, I really hope that this is a start. I mean, this is long overdue.
Absolutely.
Long. This is, you know, as I say, past due, man, you know.
Of course. Brother Maitland, you want to say something?
Yeah. What I believe, I think is a good start, a very productive start. We will decrease the amount of police brutality and misconduct and whatever around the Caribbean, right? One of the issues that we have, in my experience, again, with police officers, and now I'll turn to the TPS. Now, when I went there, I was actually telling an officer about the way in which they operated. And this officer turned around and tell me, as a black free man in Trinidad, as a Caribbean national, right, that if this is the way, if I would question the way that officers are operating if I was in the United States of America. You understand? So basically, what he was telling me is that I should not question his judgment, right? So I had to, as we say in the Caribbean, I had to put him in his place. You understand? Because I am not a public servant. He is a public servant. And he should be serving the public and not questioning my commitment to justice. You understand? And this is what was happening. And I would go in any country in the world and I will deal with people accordingly. And this is what I will continue to do. I'm a human being with rights. I'm not a slave or some kind of servant like that, just begging for my rights. I have been born, I have been brought into the world with rights, you know, and it is a step in the right direction as long as people continue, we will overcome this false perception where civilians have no rights and so on. And the sad thing about it, it seems as though, all these cases here, you're saying that there were 47 cases for the year. That is too much. That is too much. I mean, I'm home. We in Grenada in 2016 we had 5 cases where persons were fatally shot by members of the Royal Grenada Police Force, and I personally found that it's too much. But the 47 cases,
In the first
that
6
is like,
months. The first 6
pardon?
months. In the
The first
first
6 months.
6 months.
The first 6 months, imagine that 47 cases, that's like over 9 times the amount back home for a year. And that's just 6 months. I really hope that this does not continue. I really hope that the people in the PCA and the Ministry of Social Security, sorry, the Ministry of National Security and these other places, I really hope that they come out and get things done. The Ministry of Social Development, it is everybody's business when it comes to police brutality. Everybody's business. It is rather sad to see that these things are continuing. I'm happy to hear that the different communities, the Muslims and the Rastas, they came together and they are standing for something that is positive. And I really hope that even after this crisis, because this is a crisis, I really do hope that after this crisis, that they will continue. This is even worse than the biggest pandemic that we would have around the world. The global threat is police brutality, right? So it is worse than the coronavirus, because many times we had people in Grenada, we had people in Trinidad, all over the world that had coronavirus, but they recovered. But sometimes when you're dealing with these officers, you have no chance, right? Those gentlemen in Mova, they had no chance of recovering. They died, they were fatally shot, right? So this is something that must be prioritized. I'm glad that Dr. Rowley is actually doing something, that he's speaking about police brutality, because the Prime Minister that we have in Grenada, he does not speak about police brutality, and he's also the Minister of National Security, right? He is Dr. Keith Mitchell. So you all have Dr. Keith Rowley and we have Dr. Keith Mitchell. But all in all, the persons in authority really need to step up and deal with these situations. If it is funding for having extra employees and so on, a suitable amount of employees to deal with these cases, because 47 cases, how many of these have been closed? And then we have rogue officers driving around Trinidad and Tobago, just beating people, making a mockery of people, standing on people's back, shooting pregnant women, and that is crazy. It's unacceptable. It is unacceptable, and I really do hope that in Grenada we could deal with police brutality as well, because we do need to change the daily operations of our police force back home. On Trinidad and Tobago, at first it was a force, and then they changed it into service. Grenada has spoken about changing the word into Royal Grenada Police Service. They have spoken about doing that. But it is my understanding, from a realistic point of view, that whether we change the name from force to service, once the individuals have the same mentality, there will be no difference. And this is what we have to address, the mentality of these persons. We have called on the government of Grenada to put in body cameras. I don't think Trinidad and Tobago has that, right? Body cameras on the police officers, so we can see what is going on. That will deter them from actually assaulting people and so on, when they know that there's video evidence that can be used against them. It would not stop it, but it would decrease it. We need these video cameras in the police stations as well. Without that CCTV, we would not have seen what had happened. The police officers could have just simply say, look, these guys had guns, they could have gone and get guns wherever they're selling it. because we all know what happened in Trinidad. They could have just go back, get the guns from wherever they sell it, and plant it by the bodies and say, look, we shot in defense of officers. So
Yeah.
we need the cameras on the officers. We need it in the stations. We need ongoing training for these officers. They need to go through everything, you know, all these mental maintenance counseling and everything like that. And the victims, I really do hope that there's something in place for the victims and the family members of the victims, because they themselves might react in such a way that they would end up on the wrong side of the law trying to get justice for their family members. And I believe this is one of the reasons why these things are continuing to happen. And
Well, let me just interject there. The commissioner said that he has ordered some more cameras.
mhm,
You know, presently he said that there were just 100 they had for now, but on a test basis. But that he was ordering some more.
mhm.
You know, which is a good move, and
Yeah, good move.
I hope that they don't tune them off like some of the people do in America. You know, you see have a
Yeah,
problem.
yeah.
They have cameras, but they know what to do with it. Okay,
Mhm, mhm,
and he is creating some rules, some kind of I think something about they want to change legislation where the officer have to put it on once he goes on duty. You know,
mhm, mhm, mhm,
as for the politics, I think that we need to keep Dr. Keith Rowley, you know, feet on the fire because
mhm,
these things can get easily forgotten. You know how it
mhm.
goes in
True.
Trinidad, you know,
Mhm,
and you know we need to keep him to make sure he fulfill his words, you know,
mhm,
because this time I don't think we are standing for empty promises,
mhm,
you know, and
mhm,
now this is an election season, so I don't know how
mhm,
we'll treat with the other if there's a new government,
mhm,
you know, there's another challenge that we have to face, another uphill.
mhm,
Okay, because the headspace of most of these candidates and these parties is a kind of militarization of the police.
mhm,
You know, more guns. Maybe they
mhm,
want to bring out tanks, helicopter. You know. So, but that will not
mhm.
solve the problem. We have
Well,
streets in
It
America.
would not.
It will not
brother,
solve the
brother,
problem.
Mhm,
brother Hassan, as you know, Trump is going into Chicago now to try and take weaponize the citizens of Chicago. Do you think that
Mm.
Rowley will see that and think if he went to Lavent Hill and sent tanks into Lavent Hill, that would be the way forward?
Well, I think that is the commissioner headspace. If he had some way to send tanks, he'd have gotten tanks. But that situation in Chicago, to me, I look at it both sides. Yeah, I
mhm,
mean, it's a
mhm,
travesty among black people. You know, where we
mhm,
just killing each other. I mean, Father's Day had 100 and something shootings, in Chicago, and they kill
Well,
in New York. They
Farrakhan
kill.
said he
Yeah, you know,
welcomed it. He said he welcomed it. He says, "Come,
you know,
we're ready."
So well, you see, and that's the thing is so if we are not able to police ourselves and create, you see, but that's another dynamic in America. If you're not, because
mhm,
remember earlier about 2 years ago, right? Guns were being found in alleyways,
mhm,
and it was claimed that police were dropping guns in the area, or somebody was dropping guns. Now it's an explosion
mhm,
of guns. Now you want to send in federal officers, so that is a total mess. I just hope we don't reach that, you know, situation, because
mhm,
the brother here was saying that we don't want a situation of really young men confronting the police. That ain't gonna make no sense.
mhm,
That's not the way to
mhm,
go right now. That is the situation that doesn't call for, and we hope it is never called for. That we want to solve the thing in an
mhm,
amicable way, in with some social justice. Because as I say, if you have an unequal society, it kills. When I say kills, I'm not just talking about kill physically. It kills your
Spiritually,
ambitions. Yeah, it kills your
emotionally,
spirituality. It kills your
yes,
drive. It kills your
mhm,
morality. People lose
mhm,
hope.
mhm,
yes.
So we have to address that inequality in a society that's just what 1.3 million people. London has more people than that.
Mhm.
London has, in fact, where I am I'm in Norwich now,
Okay.
Mhm.
have more people than that. That's what I'm saying.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You know, and they're able to function. So
Mhm.
why can't we function and we have resources? I mean, it's not like we poor in a sense. You know, we have resources. You see?
Brother Hassan,
You
I
see,
would like to, you were going
you
to say
see,
something,
before,
brother?
yeah. There's a gentleman, Brother Hassan, Melvin Coutin, Master Melvin Coutin. He's from Trinidad. He lives in Grenada. Now, Master Coutin has designed a program called Second Chance and the Olive Branch program and so on, where he works along with youth and everything. I believe that that is a gentleman that you should really get in contact with on Facebook, you know, and I like to keep in contact with you as well on Facebook. Right, so you could just look for me through Ingram, and we could connect, try to bring the youth to channel that energy in a positive way. You know, there was a movie with Morgan Freeman where he was a principal in a school. Ingram, what was the name of that movie with Morgan Freeman? What was it? But it was a powerful movie. He went into the slums of. But you block, you muted, Brother Hassan.
Oh, sorry. I said I remember the movie, but I can't remember the name of it.
Yes,
It
I
was in
can't
a
remember the name.
it was one of those depressed areas.
Yes, it
Yeah,
was.
yeah. Mm.
It was. And he changed everything about the place. And you know, what we are doing, what you are doing in Trinidad, what Ingram is doing in England, what I'm doing in Grenada, what Master Coutin is doing in Grenada. This is what we hoping to achieve. And as long as we work together, it would become easier because, as you said,
Okay.
the population down there is over 1 million. You know, in Grenada, the population is just 110,000 people.
Yeah, I mean, come on,
Just,
we can go.
yeah,
We supposed to be a paradise.
yeah, we
You understand what I'm
suppose,
saying?
you know,
Yeah.
yeah, because I mean, I still have hope because we still have people in Trinidad and Tobago and in Grenada, in the Caribbean especially, where we could just walk through and tell people, hey, good morning, strangers, as you pass them on the street. And this is not what something that you see happening in the United States of America or
No,
anywhere.
no.
So there's still hope for us, you know, much more hope
Yeah.
than what is in America. You know, we
Mm.
supposed to be a paradise, as you said, and I
Yeah.
really do hope that, you know, things would change, and we should definitely uh, be back again. We, as in Grandma saying, we have a Monday program. Every Monday we are
Okay. Okay.
doing
Okay.
brutality. We're trying to curb it before it gets to the point where citizens believe that they would have to be shooting after the police and so on. That's something that we
Mm.
don't want.
Mm.
Every young man has a mother or a father, right? And these are the real victims. When
Mm.
that man dies, his mother is left to mourn his loss, or his father, his brother, whoever else. You know, they have to live on with that pain and that hurt, right? So this is why
Mm.
we're calling on members of the police forces around the Caribbean and around the world to
Mm.
remember that this is not just trees that they're shooting or pieces of wood. These are human beings with lives, you know?
Definitely.
Yeah,
Definitely.
and they really need to recognize that fact. So, you know, as usual, at this point, I know we have to lock off. So I want to
Okay.
thank Ingram. Ingram, it's actually what, 3:20 a.m. in England?
Thank you very much. So it's 3:20 in the morning. It is indeed.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So but
3:20.
let me ask you something. On Facebook, are you under this name, J
Yeah.
Maitland?
Earl Joseph. So let me type it in the chat. Josef. Earl Joseph.
Joseph, Josef.
Yeah, Maitland.
Maitland.
The only thing is I'll message you. I won't be able to add you as a friend because I have reached my limit, 5,000 friends.
Okay, well,
5,000 friends. Uh-huh.
my name is the same on Facebook. Okay.
Okay, let me
Same.
just send you a quick ad now. You know, it's always good to unite, come together.
You can
Um,
send me an invite. I can follow. Even though I can't
Yeah.
add you as a friend, I can be a follower.
Yeah, yeah, we
Okay?
could
Yeah.
message them because the world
Yeah.
is a small place. It
Yeah,
is
the
a
world is a
small
small
place.
place, man. Yeah. And two, I
Yeah.
mean, between Grenada and Trinidad, I mean, I just tell people what really is a Trinidadian is. I mean, a Trinidadian is a Grenadian in Vincent, you know, because Trinidad was
Yeah.
underpopulated and invite
Yeah.
all these people to come. I have family in Grenada. My grandfather was from Karaku. You know, so you know,
It's a
I
small
mean,
place.
and then I've
Yeah.
yeah, that's small place. My grandmother is
Yeah.
from, her father is from Barbados.
Oh, well, look at that. My grandmother is from Barbados.
Yeah, my
My
father,
grandmother.
my grandfather, mother was from St. Vincent. So we're Caribbean people, you know. So
Yeah, Caribbean people. My grandfather is Trinidadian. My grandmother is Bajan. They settle in Grenada.
yeah,
So you know, everybody related. Everybody is related, and
yeah,
we all one people, right?
yeah, that's
It
it.
doesn't
Yeah,
matter the profession or the financial status. We all one people,
and we
and
have to solve this. We have to solve this common problem and this common
yeah,
legacy. We have to go forward. That is
mhm,
that is what it's about.
we do, we do,
So
we
Brother,
do.
I thank
before
you
you
very
go,
much for inviting me.
before
I
you go,
enjoy. Yeah. Mhm.
I'd like you to come back and give us a special election special for Trinidad. Give us a viewpoint of the different people that are
Okay. Okay.
for
Okay. Okay. Okay.
and
So you well,
on
yeah,
that.
well, you give me some homework to do. Okay, I'll do that.
Yeah, if you could do that for me,
Okay. Yeah.
nice to have that, and bring Earl back on as well.
Because the election is on
Hey,
the 10th of August.
yeah,
Mhm,
So
that's
between so
4
before
days.
that time, give me a little time. I'll be
mhm.
able
Yes.
to organize it. Okay.
All right.
Okay,
But
okay,
I really
okay.
enjoy exchanging ideas, and it's very nice.
Thank
Mhm.
you, brother.
No,
I
it is,
appreciate
it
you
is,
Yeah.
coming
it
on.
is, it is. Yeah, I
Okay.
sent you a message on Facebook. As
Okay.
I
Cool.
said, no one
Okay.
man has all the answers. That's why we come
Yeah.
together.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Because it's.
Fantastic.
I'm
Uh-huh.
glad we end this time too, because you know, as Muslims, it's time for the first prayer.
Uh-huh.
So,
Okay, that's good, brother.
yeah. So
Assalamu
peace
alaikum,
out.
brother.
Wa alaikum salam. Okay, my
All right.
brother. Good to meet you all.
Take care. Take care.
Everybody's been watching. Thank you so much. This has been Grenada and Trinidad Matters, or Trinidad and Grenada Matters.